Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Funk Chronicles. I'm Dr. Turk Logan from WTRK and Logan Communication. And with me today, I have a very dear friend, a colleague, Trent Newell. Trent, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, Turk. Appreciate being here, man.
I appreciate having you here. You're still at WCSU, and how things going? What time are you on the air, and how long you been there?
I've been there almost 9 years, coming up in November, and doing the morning's jazz show. It's called Jazz in the Morning from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Monday through Friday.
Okay. Well, that's great. Trent, tell me a little bit about your background and how you got into radio and things of this nature.
Well, you know, I was talking to someone outside the studio moments ago of how I got in it. The aspirations came about because of WDAO back in the 70s,
right,
with the likes of yourself and also Langford the Man Stevens and Michael Lecton, those guys. That was the inspiration behind me wanting to get into broadcasting. Went to Daytona Beach State in Florida to college, and was going to go into being a basketball coach, but I kind of transcended past that and wanted to get into radio.
Because you also have a background in play-by-play too, don't you, as I recall?
Exactly. I felt like if, being a former athlete myself, if I wasn't going to be able to play on the professional level, I would be able to broadcast it, whether it was football or basketball.
Okay. We have an opportunity here in Dayton, Ohio. You, myself, David Webb, and others, Shirley and Dale, we talked to them, Shirley Murdoch, Dale DeGroche, and many, many others, of leaving some history behind for our children to see. The Funk Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center. Give me your assessment of this.
I'm truly excited, and I had talked to David earlier. I thought that this is a long time coming, something that probably should have been finalized probably 20 or 30 years ago. When I think of what funk music meant to the city of Dayton, I mean, you think about it, we're not the biggest city in the country, but very proud of all the groups and artists that came from Dayton, Ohio, from the Ohio Players all the way down to Slave. So when I think about that, I just think it's a long time coming, and I'm very happy that it's about to come into fruition.
Now, you did an interview at your radio station, WCSU 88.9, and bringing back good memories from me for the 23 years I spent there with you guys, with David. And what were your plans? Are you going to run that interview anytime soon, or have you run it already, or what's the plan?
Oh, it's going to be running a week from this coming Saturday.
Okay, okay. So you guys have already gotten involved in it. Okay, well, that's good. It would be nice, and I don't know how we can do this because of the National Afro-American Museum that's right across the street from Central State, but it would be nice to get Central State and Wilberforce involved in the growth of this museum that's coming up, because some of the kids are from Dayton, Ohio. Most of them probably don't know the history, I would say, and not through anything critical from their standpoint. They just don't know, you know. And one of the things we tried to do as much as possible when we were there is to make them aware of the artists that came out of Dayton from that perspective. And I think some of them that were there during that time was able to do that. When you guys play music, are you playing anything from any of the groups from Dayton, Ohio, or are the groups are just national groups? I don't get a chance to listen because I have my own station. How are you guys approaching that?
Well, primarily we changed the genre, so we're doing jazz.
Just jazz.
So we do the focus on contemporary jazz artists, for that matter. As far as artists from this area, well, you know, we have artists like Frank McComb. He's from Cleveland. Okay. So there are some artists from Ohio that are featured. So we try to get those and played on the air. Well,
that's good. That's good, because I know you guys are doing some innovative things. I've known Ed Clay, who is the general manager, for over 40 years, and I know he has a passion for jazz music. He's a jazz artist himself, and had a passion for WCSU, and now he's in charge, and I know he's probably doing a fine job with the radio station. What are your future plans, Trent, if you have any, being at WCSU for almost 9 years and having a strong background in communication?
Oh, I'm really enjoying doing my show, and that's the one thing I learned from some of the pioneers, broadcasters, and going back to the WDAO's days, including yourself. And it's about loving what you do and being on the air and having fun.
Right.
And ever since I've been there, that's been the case. So I plan on staying there and probably work in another capacity. I'm also a host of a community talk show called Miami Valley Speaks that airs Saturday mornings at 11 a.m.
That's on WCSU?
That's WCSU.
Okay, okay. Yeah. Well, you know, you may, if you haven't thought about it already, have at some point in time bring some members from the Funk Music Hall of Fame up to talk about some of the things. Because we want this to move forward into 2015, 16, and moving forward, because this is something that, like you said, should have been done 20 or 30 years ago, something that is happening right now, something that is going to come to fruition. And as I just indicated to the U.S. State Senator, communications, effective communication, is so important. And so that's good to know. So there's something to think about on down the road. Who are some of the guests you've had on your show?
Well, I've actually had the former mayor of Dayton, Ryan McGlynn, was a guest on my show a couple of months back.
Good people.
Yes, Reverend Jerome McCory of the Adam Project. He does a lot for a lot of young men and women that have been previously incarcerated.
Another good
and come
man.
out and get out in the streets. Also, see Marcia. Her name slips me right now, but the mayor of Xenia was actually on my show. Yes, and it covers a little of everything: issues, problems, and interest.
Right.
We've had a couple of authors on there. Ryan Ireland recently, who works at the Greene County Library. He's coming out with his first book, I believe, in April.
Okay.
So we've had a number of different guests on the show. We've interviewed the new head coach at Central State University as he began his coaching
Football,
career.
basketball?
Football,
Okay,
yes.
good.
Yes.
Well, that's good. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Funk Chronicles. I'm your host, Dr. Turk Logan, Logan Communication, WTRK, and with me is a very dear friend and colleague, Trent Newell, and from WCSU's morning show, correct? You're
That's
still in
right,
the morning?
yes.
Good, good, good. So you got a new football coach. Are we going to start winning some games now, you think?
Well, I think that,
You see, I still wear this
yes,
championship.
you're a marauder to your heart.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it comes down to the players you're able to bring in.
Correct.
You can bring in, Bill Belichick or Lou Saban or whoever the case may be.
Okay.
And it all comes down to getting the right players to fit your system and what you're trying to do.
Sure.
Because when I was doing the football games, Central State, their offensive line barely averaged 200 pounds.
Right.
When you get in college, you like to get that up to 240, 250, and a lot of times those players are going to the Ohio States, the Alabamas, and the USC. So it makes it very difficult for a coach to come in. For him to be successful, he needs time.
Right.
And they need patience with this coach and develop some stability with the coaching staff and be able to recruit some more players locally. They haven't been able to do that over the last half a dozen years.
Well, and you're right. I followed that, been a part of that for 10 years, and wish them all the luck and success moving forward. Let's talk politics for a minute. President Obama spoke, gave a State of the Union address. I don't know if you had a chance to see it or not, but if you did, what was your opinion? I
believe, well, especially with the minimum wage, I think that's been an issue for the middle class for many, many years. It's hard for the average person to live off minimum wage, and in most cases don't even have medical or dental insurance to boot.
Right.
The other thing that sticks out was the focus on education.
Sure.
Talking about a free community college for anyone. I mean, I think you could take advantage of that, getting a 2-year degree, getting an associate's degree, or picking up a trade or something like that
Sure.
at a particular college.
I think that would be a great opportunity for many people, including my wife. I just mentioned to her last night, I said, well, Tracy, you can go back to school now, if that seems to be the case, or if that comes if there's a bill and it gets passed, I think that's great, because many people, it's so expensive. I remember when I was in graduate school what my debt costs to go through the doctoral program, so it's so expensive. So to get a free education, I think would be a plus for many, many people in that situation. The Funk Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center, Trent, what do you see? What do you see a vision for that becoming a reality anytime soon? What do you see?
Oh, yes, I'm truly excited about that. I talked to David Webb about that. I mean, I can imagine just walking in the facility and just perhaps seeing Sugarfoot's guitar, or seeing a big poster of some of the Ohio Player albums. I remember all of them, you know, from Honey to Skin Tight, whatever the case may be.
Sure.
Or reading little tidbits on certain artists that maybe some people didn't know.
Exactly.
And I think the big advantage, and again, I go back to your days at WDAL, you were the reason that I became a Heat Wave fan, because you pushed that group to the point that where when I went to college, I took that down with me.
Sure.
And people know who Heat Wave is. I mean, all of them aren't from Dayton. I know they come from London, England, but the two primary, Johnny and Keith, are both from Dayton. They're Daytonians.
Exactly.
And the little interesting tidbits I can see, I mean, it's more than seeing the pictures, you know, because a picture sometimes don't say 1,000 words.
Right.
And I think that if they learn, you know, or say, wow, I didn't know this about this person here. I didn't know Roger Troutman was a part of this group here.
Right.
Or he wrote a song for this group.
Right, right.
Those little tidbits are very helpful.
Well, you know, I've been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame several times. And when I walk through there, I get a little let down, only because I don't see us. And when I say us, guys from Dayton, Ohio, guys that I know personally, like you said, Johnny Wilder Jr., Sugar, Satch, Marshall Jones, Mark Adam, Mark Wood, and Brian Bird, guys that are great musicians, not were great musicians, but are great musicians. Johnny's no longer with us. But I don't see us there on that, on the podium or background, and this is an opportunity for us to be a part of that, just like you said.
Yes, I haven't had that opportunity to go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I've talked to a couple of people that have visited on a number of occasions, and I actually had talked about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame a couple of weeks ago with a friend of mine, and I just felt like it's one of those things where you have people that vote that may not be as cognizant of that group.
That's exactly
for
right.
example, that had great songs.
That's exactly
and
right.
Sometimes
and I kind of feel slighted, to be perfectly honest,
yes.
because they're in Cleveland, Ohio, and you would think that they would know about some of those groups because of the impact that they had and the records that they sold. There was a kid by the name of Adam Greaser. And Adam Greaser, when he was working on his master's at the Wright State University, did the Dayton Funk Project. I don't know if you had a chance to see that video. It was 7 minutes. And in that video, he highlighted me. Now, I didn't know the kid, you know, until I was on YouTube scanning and saw the video. And he showed me that during that era, we sold more gold and platinum records. We made more than gold and platinum records than anybody in the world during that time. And it was just, you know, you don't think about it when it's happening, you know, and you don't blow your own horn from that standpoint. And he showed that wall full of gold and platinum records that came out of Dayton, Ohio. And I was amazed, and he highlighted me in my office, and I guess I was the only one that he remembered during that time. And I don't see that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame alluded to any of that, and I think they missed a major part of history. And this history is over 30 years old now, almost 40 years old. And so, yeah, so, you know, the several times that I've been through, there's some great artists there. That's not to take away from any of the great artists that are at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Jimi Hendrix, the Isley Brothers, and so on and so forth. But I don't see any of the Dayton artists there.
Yeah, that's a bit troubling. One thing I used to do, I used to keep my eye on the Billboard chart, and you know, each week I would go to the library if I'm in college, or when I'm old enough to buy the magazine myself. But the one thing that sticks out to me, 1979-80, and I had to do some research because there were other groups, obviously, in the top 100. And at one period, Dayton groups, 6 different Dayton groups were on the chart at the same time. No other groups from, whether it was Detroit, Los Angeles, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, could match that.
Yeah.
And I was in college, and I pointed that out to someone.
See, those are things that's that history that some of the powers that be have missed, because I know I used to get phone calls on a daily basis at WDAO about the Dayton artists after we broke the Ohio Players and after we broke Roger and a few other groups. It got to the point for me that I could pick up the phone and call the president of a label, Henry Allen, Bruce Lundvall, the president of Solar Records, Dick Griffey. They would take my phone calls because I could say, I got a group in Dayton, Ohio, man, that's got some hot product, and all I ask you to do is give a listen to it, you know. And they did, and Lakeside was signed by Solar Records, and Slave was signed by Cotillion, and yes, so on and so forth. And that felt good. That made me feel good, because I didn't want anything. You know, I would maybe request a gold album from that standpoint, but it made me feel good to be a part of that back then. And here we are some 40 plus years later talking about putting a brick and mortar together to remember some of these artists. You
know, when I think of Lakeside, when I think of those guys were multi-talented, and I'll go one further. After signing with Solar Records with Dick Griffey, they actually were pretty instrumental in other groups' success, including the Whispers, where Norman Beaver's a member of Lakeside, Stephen Shockley, and some of those guys were instrumental in songwriting and producing, helping other groups, Shalimar and Dynasty. So
Roger, before he passed away, went out west and worked with Tupac and Biggie Smalls and Dr. Dre, and they came up with a platinum-selling California Love. And yeah, they were very instrumental. Many of them were very instrumental. And the beauty of it is a lot of the music is still being played today, some 44 years later. You can still hear Fire, you can still hear All the Way Live, or Always and Forever, or Slide and whatnot. You can still hear these songs today. And that's a beautiful thing from what we were from the seeds that we were able to plant some 40 plus years ago to where it's grown into today.
Yeah, you take with the Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center, the little tidbits that I just alluded to, where if people see, you know, maybe a poster or something of the group Sun, maybe people need to know that some of those members went and formed Dayton, or same thing with Slave, where they formed Aura. A lot of those groups bounced off of each other and formed other groups. And that's some helpful information that maybe some people could use.
Well, and you're right, because we have gone through 4 decades of musicians. So a lot of, I would think, some of even the great-grandkids, I have a great-granddaughter that's 10 years old, would inherit some of this music history that, say, the Ohio Players have left behind, or Lakeside, or Johnny Wilder. You know, I know Johnny Wilder's daughter very well, Carla, and she's in the last time I talked, she was in the banking business, and that's something that she probably can sing, she probably can play. It probably just comes natural to her.
Yes, yes.
So this carries on the legacy, and the Funk Museum, Music Hall of Fame, and Exhibition Center will solidify that legacy for many of these artists.
Yes, and again, I'm truly excited about it, and it's been a long time coming, and I'm hoping all of this happens in the Miami Valley area very quickly, and I would encourage everyone of any race, color, or creed to embark and take a part in this.
It's going to be something for the whole world to see, and it's going to be something that's going to make Dayton, Ohio extraordinarily proud once they come to fruition with this center. And I want to commend David and his organization for having the vision, for taking the ball and running with it. And he's got me involved in it now. And I'm excited because, You know, a lot of it is history that I was a part of many years ago. You're involved. You're part of that history as well. It's always good to talk to you and see you and hear you, because you're a part of me.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
And I feel good about that.
Yes, I do too.
I feel good about that as it comes back years later. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking with Mr. Trent Newell from WCSU 88.9 on The Funk Chronicle. I'm your host, Dr. Turk Logan from WTRK, Logan Communications. Thank you for watching.